What's going on, guys? Welcome back. And some of you may have noticed that the audio in this video sounds slightly different from my previous ones, and that is because I'm finally using the microphone I got for my birthday. So if you could let me know in the comments whether the audio quality sounds better or worse than before, that would be very much appreciated. But moving on to our topic of discussion, today I am going to be talking about The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Now, The Hunger Games is a franchise that I haven't really talked about on this channel. My brother showed me all the movies a few years ago and bought me the books, which I just finished reading around a month ago, as well as binge rewatching the films. I'm not sure I'd call myself a fan of the franchise as much as I have immense respect for its ability to explore some pretty mature subject matter. What on the surface level may seem like a cliché young adult dystopia series with teen drama and love triangles actually tackles some pretty heavy topics like the residual effect of war and corrupt governments exploiting violence to create entertainment. And I'm fairly certain that everyone knows the basic plot of this movie by now, but in case you've somehow been living under a rock for the last 3 years, the story follows young Coriolanus Snow roughly 65 years before we see him as the cruel dictator of Panem in the original series, as he mentors the District 12 tribute Lucy Gray Baird, trying to help her navigate and hopefully survive the 10th annual Hunger Games. Let's start off with the obvious question. Does this film effectively adapt its source material? And, well, in my opinion at least, the answer is a resounding yes. Francis Lawrence, the same director of the last 3 Hunger Games films, returns here almost a decade after completing Mockingjay Part 2, and having him return was a welcome sight, because having watched the behind the scenes for all of the original Hunger Games films, it's very clear that he cares about this story and is willing to show these characters the respect they deserve, which is so refreshing to see, especially after the last piece of media I talked about on this channel was entirely helmed by a guy who didn't show even a modicum of respect for characters created by other people, let alone himself. Lawrence does an excellent job of communicating to us that Panem is in a much different state than how we see it in the original trilogy. This is still a futuristic society, but they are working with much more primitive technology at this point in time, and I think they were able to show that off in clever ways. For example, by having Lucky Flickerman and the mentors watching the games through what appear to be 60s television sets, and the constantly malfunctioning drones provide the film with some appropriate comedic relief. And the casting across the board is great. Obviously the main cast is brilliant, but even the smaller actors who play the tributes leave an impact. I knew nothing about Tom Blythe going into this film. I'd never seen him act in anything, so I had some trouble believing that he could carry this film, but oh boy, did he prove me wrong. He's required to portray some complicated emotions during this movie, and he was captivating as Coriolanus Snow. Unsurprisingly, Rachel Zegler was also the perfect choice to play the character of Lucy Gray. I know there's a weird controversy surrounding her at the moment that is really stupid in my opinion, but it was proven back in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story that she could not only act, but also sing, and she beautifully brings to life these songs from the book. They were perfectly translated from page to screen, and provide the film with a nice, cozy vibe when we eventually make it to District 12. Speaking of music, James Newton Howard is here to blow us away once again with his score that manages to incorporate themes from the old Hunger Games films, but tells its own musical narrative which stands on its own detached from all that. My boy James is over here killing it 2 years in a row. Last year we had The Secrets of Dumbledore, this year we've got The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Can someone give this man an Oscar already? I will also say that they did the best job they possibly could have of adapting this book into the medium of film, because The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is a very long and complex story, perhaps even more complex than the original Hunger Games, because the original Hunger Games trilogy was told exclusively from the first-person perspective of Katniss Everdeen, and they were able to adapt that well by casting Jennifer Lawrence, one of the most frickin' phenomenal actresses on the planet, who was able to emote exactly what Katniss was thinking internally. This story, on the other hand, is told from the first-person POV of a sociopath who gradually descends into madness. And you can tell they had a bit of trouble with that in this movie, because they ran into the same problem that they did when making The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay. How do you make a movie based on a book told from inside someone's head? Well, there's no way to show someone's internal monologue on screen, so they have to resort to exposition. And I understand that. There's quite literally no other option. But this film has some of the most egregious instances of this in the entire franchise, to a point where during the third act, at one of the most crucial points in the story, the characters essentially just tell us what they're thinking and what's going on, instead of just allowing us to piece together what the characters are piecing together in that moment. And that leads me into a larger issue with the film, combined with the minor alterations made to the source material throughout, especially in that aforementioned moment during the third act, which is really the point of no return for Snow's character. It's when he makes the choice that seals his fate and the path that he will continue to go on in future. They almost make Snow too nice, or at least not as bad as he's supposed to be. It's not that you aren't meant to sympathize with Coriolanus in the book, because you most certainly are, but to put it simply, he's a sociopath. He views everyone close to him as if they are property, and all of the decisions he makes throughout the story which could be perceived as noble are actually self-serving. Some of this does come across in the film, and as previously stated, there are some brilliant scenes where Tom Blythe is giving it his all with the performance, but without that psychological element, the look we get into his mind, some of the story gets lost in translation. I'm genuinely interested to hear what non-book readers have to say about all this, because for general audience members, some of these issues might not be as problematic in the grand scheme of things, although I have heard some people saying that the ending feels rushed, and while I don't fully agree with that, I feel like it's most likely a result of the medium in which they're telling the story, because towards the end of the film, I could tell they were kind of speed running through the third section of the book. They made sure to cut out all the excess and include only the scenes that are mandatory for the story to function. And that's obviously an intentional choice to benefit the pacing of the film, because the movie is already almost 3 hours long. There's no conceivable way for them to keep in every detail from the book, so it didn't bother me that much. I've also seen the suggestion that splitting this film into 2 parts may have resolved this issue, but if you ask me, people need to make up their minds. Everyone complained about Mockingjay being split into 2 parts back in the day, despite the fact that it's a significantly shorter book than the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. But unlike Ballad, Mockingjay has a logical cutoff point. If you were to cut this film into 2 parts, you'd end up with 2 films that are disproportionate in length. That would make for a far less satisfying experience as opposed to this one film with a beefy runtime. At the end of the day, while it does fall short in some areas, The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is, in my opinion, a satisfactory adaptation of the book and a welcome addition to the Hunger Games franchise. After walking out of the theater, my brother and I talked for hours about our different interpretations of the story. He hadn't read the book, but I had, so I was able to offer him some insights that he didn't have going into the film, and we just had a great discussion about the themes present in the story, the choices we thought were intentional, the ones that weren't. It's a film that invites thoughtful conversation, And that's something I can't say about a lot of the crap being pumped out by these other big franchises at the moment that I usually forget about 10 seconds after watching it. But you guys let me know. What are your thoughts on The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Just whatever your thoughts are. Please let me know them all in the comments below. And of course, as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.